Good evening and warm welcome to Power News, your window to the power sector. I'm Juhi Rajput. Let's begin with the top stories of the week. State-owned NHPC's proposed hydel projects in Myanmar, 880 megawatt Amanti and 880 megawatt Shuazai are unlikely to take off given the social and environmental implications and abnormally high tariffs. NHPC was asked by the Ministry of External Affairs to develop the two projects to promote cooperation between India and Myanmar in the hydropower sector. As per the DPR prepared, the project would require expenditure of at least rupees 17,270 crore. That would entail minimum electricity tariff of rupees 6.46 a unit for the project. Taking into consideration the economic viability of these projects and potential social and environmental impact, both sides have agreed to suspend any further action on them for the present. And now the news of the week. Veerappa Moili's takeover of the Environment and Forest Ministry last month, it appears, is turning out to be a blessing for Coal India Limited, the world's largest coal producer. The new environment norms from 2014-15 will allow CIL to add to its output at least 40 million tons production in 2013-14. The ministry under Moili has cleared major CIL projects including subsidiary Central Coalfields, Kathara Open Cast Mine, which had been awaiting clearance since 2008. Other CIL projects, Western Coalfields, Chinda Expansion, Bhakra Underground and Ukni Deep Open Cast projects and Bharat Coking Coal's Dhanbad project will also benefit from the new rules. The ministry's moves are likely to help Coal India add at least 9% of its expected output of 475 million tons this year to its overall production in 2014-15. Besides, the ministry has also increased the cap on one-time capacity expansion of small coal mining projects from 25% to 50%. This will help CIL kickstart without local public hearing its pending projects involving 50% capacity expansion. The move will allow Coal India to produce an extra 40 million tons of coal. The new rules apply on one-time capacity expansion proposals that don't involve additional land acquisition. According to a ministry circular, the ability to increase capacity without a public hearing applies to increased capacity of less than 1 million tons.
This has come too little, too late. Even if the clearances are given today, the coal production would take not less than 18 to 24 months. That will impact the future running capacity of the power plants. Under these circumstances, I am not very sure whether the Coal India will be ever be ready to produce 10% incremental capacity from the existing mines and add on to go to a total annual capacity production capacity of 600 million tons in 2018, which is the target for the 12th five-year plan.
The world's largest coal miner is likely to close the current financial year with a 5% production growth, a 4-year high. The company is likely to produce 475 million tons in the year through March, marginally missing the year's target of 482 million tons due to procedural delays in forest approvals. Around 6 of its mines with a combined capacity of 20 million tons are still awaiting the environmental approvals that should have come by October 2013. In 2012-13, CIL's production had fallen 11.8 million tons short of its 464 million tons target. Its coal offtake was recorded at 465.18 million tons. The company's production this year is projected at around 475 million tons.
Many of the power projects are not able to take off due to the coal which was assured and not available. It is a pity that the government itself is a default, and after giving linkages, after giving letter of assurance for coal, several projects which started in the 12th plan are assets which are going to be modified. They will be stranded for no fault of theirs, and the bankers' money will be locked up. Today, as the nation is facing the issue relating to the current account deficit, we could have least expected that we will import coal. But the situation is such that we are importing more than 150 million tons of coal, adding several $billion to the current account deficit, while we are sitting with the largest deposit of thermal coal in the world.
Moily, also the petroleum minister, had taken additional charge of MOEF on December 23rd after Jayanti Natarajan's resignation. Projects worth Rs 10 lakh crore were said to have been stuck during Natarajan's term. Since taking charge, Moily has been instrumental in clearing about Rs 1.5 lakh crore worth of projects, including POSCO's proposed Rs 52,000 crore integrated steel plant in Orissa. Here we'll take a short break, but there is a lot more on the other side. Stay tuned.
Indian Energy Exchange, India's premier power trading platform.
From manufacturing of energy cables to EHV installations to renewable energy solutions to retail energy products, our technology energizes lives. Rovin, energizing lives.
चाहिए क्या करेगा?
पढ़ूंगा। रात को बंद तो नहीं होगा?
2 दिन तक पढ़ पाएगा।
L&T Diva Solar Lantern with built-in mobile charger. चले कई रात बस एक चार्ज पर।
Power Grid Corporation of India, the central transmission utility, world-class integrated global transmission company with dominant leadership in emerging power market, ensuring reliability, safety and economy. Power Grid, building a smarter grid.
Welcome back. After Delhi's move to slash its electricity tariff by half, other states are calling for similar concessions, dimming the prospect for electricity reforms. Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal's decision to cut tariffs by half through a subsidy may have made Delhi Power the cheapest in the country, but it threatens to undo all recent reform in tariff rationalization across the country. To talk in detail on this subject, we have with us Mr. R.V. Shahi, former Secretary Power, Government of India, and Dr. Pavan Singh, Director, PTC India Financial Services Limited. Mr. Shahi, first of all, I'd like to ask you, the DRC has said that government has no authority to reduce power tariffs. State Regulatory Commission fixes the tariff as per law, taking into account all economic considerations. The government cannot interfere in the process. It can only offer a subsidy to reduce power tariff. So what I'd like to know is that, is subsidy the only way to provide relief to consumers?
You see, under the Electricity Act 2003, it has been clearly provided that tariff is the jurisdiction of the Regulatory Commission. So it is true that state governments cannot interfere in the matter of fixation of tariff. But if the state government wants to subsidize certain cross-section of people, poor people or agriculturists, then they will say, instead of this tariff, let their tariff be a little less, but the equivalent amount they need to provide in their budget and they need to pay to the distribution company. This provision in the Act was made with the objective that for any distribution company to provide reliable power supply, quality power supply, financially they should be sound. If financially they are crippled, they won't be able to supply reliable power to the consumers. So ultimately the consumers will be hit. Coal price is increasing, railway freight is increasing, we need to import coal and therefore that price is very high. So the cost of purchase of power, which is almost in case of Delhi 75 to 80% of the total expenditure of the distribution company. If that is high and if they don't get paid, and we call it a regulatory asset, and regulatory assets, I don't know the exact figure, but it is in terms of thousands of crores. Now if the regulatory assets mount to that figure, how will you be able to adjust in the future? In the future, you are not going to again give a big tariff shock. So I think that has created a problem. There is a need for better understanding of the issue. I mean, nobody says that the state government does not have right to subsidize certain cross section of society. But then it should do it with sufficient understanding of the issue, that it should not cripple the ability of the distribution company, whoever it may be. We may change a distribution company, but any other distribution company also will need liquidity to take care of the essential expenditure.
Mr. Shahi, demand for reducing power tariff is growing. Sanjay Nirupam sat on hunger strike for cut in power tariff in Mumbai. Maharashtra cut power tariff by 20%, excluding Mumbai. Maharashtra government has also directed MERC to issue a revised rate order and giving subsidy to private distributors. Haryana rolled back power tariff hike, which will cost Rs 600 crore per annum to the state exchequer. How do you see this situation affecting the momentum of power sector reforms in the country?
A power sector reform in the last few years has gone into the reverse gear. Distribution sector reform is the cutting edge. Cutting edge of power sector is distribution sector, which we succeeded to a great extent just after Electricity Act, but it has gone into back burner. The extreme situation now is that, as you rightly said, some of the states following Delhi example have started demanding. As I said, that Act provides for government to pay the money to the distribution company, and to that extent they can subsidize. But the best way of subsidy will be what we succeeded in 2003-04. I tell you, by 2003 April, India succeeded in removing from the power map of India free power. It used to happen in Tamil Nadu, it was in Punjab, and it was in Madhya Pradesh. 2002-03 we worked hard, worked with each of the chief ministers, and we succeeded in getting free power out. I think the present trend on the eve of the parliament election this year, by April, May, I think many of the political parties are again making this subject as a subject of controversy. I would feel we put a lot of efforts to reform this sector. It yielded benefit. It has started yielding benefits in many areas, but this might reverse the process.
Dr. Singh, coming to you, how do you see this political move of tariff reduction through subsidy, which may affect the momentum of power sector reforms in the country?
More than giving of the subsidies, one is the funding of the subsidy, and second is the financing of the subsidy in time, because what happens is that many times the government declares subsidy, but the cash flows don't happen because it remains a paper exercise. So the utilities are starved of funds in absence of cash flows not being released. So it remains to be a paper exercise, and that worries investors as well as the rating agencies when they perceive the health of state power utilities. One thing has to be borne in mind, that it always has to be borne in mind that postponement of expenditure leads to increase in expenditure, because if the balance sheet's quality deteriorates, the cost of financing goes up. So what can be funded at much lower cost of capital gets funded at a very high cost of capital. And only thing is that we keep on postponing the problem. Today or tomorrow the customer has to pay a little more than what he has to pay today. And again is that we are shifting, because if it's subsidy, somebody has to pay. Either the customer pays or the taxpayer pays. So we are shifting the burden either to future customer, or we are shifting the burden from a customer to a taxpayer.
Mr. Shahi, lastly, I'd like to ask, central government has planned Rs 95,000 crore financial restructuring plan for reviving power sector financial health in major states. If tariff revision would be politically motivated, to what extent could this hurt the sentiment of the sector?
The objective with which this debt restructuring scheme has been done, and I must compliment the present Power Minister, Mr. Jyotiraditya Scindia, who took all steps, worked very hard to convince various people to get it done, to sign the agreements. But then agreements would be agreements. The actions that are following and that are likely to follow, if this trend continues, I only hope this trend does not continue. So far, this trend is visible only in a couple of states. After what has happened in Delhi, Haryana gave an indication of doing something like that, and Maharashtra has given indication of doing something like that. Both these states are important states. They must not convey this message. In the central government, we have UPA. The power minister is driving this reform, trying to bring it back on the rails. And the government of the same political affiliation is in the reverse direction. I only wish central government also intervenes, that this process is not allowed to escalate to many states.
Dr. Singh, if tariff revision would be politically motivated, how much could this further hurt the sentiment of the sector?
At this point of time, it looks like that tariff reductions would happen, but actually it's not tariff reduction, as I said earlier. It is so much of meeting the gap through subsidy and budgetary support. So because regulator would always allow the whatever cost is there to the utility. He would not cut down on the whatever allowable costs are there. Only thing is that the government would chip in and try to give grant and subsidy. The concern here is that timely payment of subsidy and grant, that becomes a major issue, because having declared a subsidy and grant, the government should have that kind of necessary finance to fund the subsidy. If that happens, then there's not so much of a problem. But what is very important is that the sector should go on a reform roadmap, and that is what will keep the sector going. And for that, the regulator has to have freedom and independence, which has to be there. That is one. Second is that we must get rid of the culture of regulatory assets, because we keep on allowing an expenditure, but then we say that it will be there on a future date. So that culture of creating regulatory asset, because it really plays on the havoc on the financial health of the state power utilities.
Thanks Mr. Shahi and Dr. Singh for joining us in Power News. It's time for another short break. Keep watching Power News.
Indian Energy Exchange, India's premier power trading platform.
जल से जल तक, मेगा वाटर से मेगावाट्स तक, SJVN Limited.
Power Finance Corporation, the most preferred financial institution, providing affordable and competitive products and services with efficient and internationally integrated sourcing. PFC, partnering the reforms in the Indian power sector.
Welcome back. Larsen & Toubro is $14 billion technology, engineering, construction, manufacturing and financial services conglomerate with global operations. It is one of the largest and most respected companies in India's private sector. A strong customer-focused approach and the constant quest for the top-class quality have enabled L&T to attain and sustain leadership in its major lines of business over 7 decades. To talk on latest innovations and growth strategy, we have with us Mr. S.C. Bhargava, Senior Vice President and Head of Larsen & Toubro Electrical and Automation. Very good evening, Mr. Bhargav, and welcome to Power News.
Good evening, Joey. Nice to have you.
First of all, I'd like to ask you, the E&C division is structured into strategic business units. What are the range of products and solutions under this division, and which all segments it caters to?
You know, the electrical and automation business has actually 5 prime businesses: medium voltage equipment, low voltage components, low voltage systems, energy meters, and control and automation. And with this portfolio, we today actually cater to all the utilities: the utility segment, the industry segment, the building segment. In addition to that, we also cater to data centers, commercial centers, and so on. So, to me, anyone who uses electricity is a customer.
Tell us about your strategic business units, which comes under this division.
You know, we look at it as SBGs, specific product groups, business groups, and I have 2 of them. One is the product SBG, which has low voltage components and energy meters under it. And the second one is project SBG, in which I have low voltage systems, medium voltage systems, as well as control and automation. So these are the 2 business groups which are there under me.
Which are the segments you're catering through these products?
As I mentioned to you, The product businesses cater to all the segments which are electrical users: residential buildings, commercial buildings, industrial applications, power plants, whether it is utilities directly or indirectly, as well as OEMs. The project group caters much more to specific segments. They are focused towards utilities, they are focused towards industries, and when I say industries, I cover all of them, right from chemical to let's say pharmaceutical, industrial, mining, cement, all of it. And in addition to that, we also cater to some of the segments like commercial data centers or high-end infrastructure projects like airports, malls, or ports for that matter.
Coming to manufacturing facilities, where are these manufacturing units located?
We have totally 14 manufacturing facilities, out of which 8 of them are located outside India and 6 of them are located in India. The ones which are located outside India cover Australia, Indonesia, Malaysia. Malaysia has 2 of them. We have one in Dammam in Saudi, and we have one in Jebel Ali. In addition to that, we also have one in the UK. In India, we have 6 of them located.
Mr. Bhargava, according to you, what are the major strengths of Electrical Automation Division?
You know, we have 3 areas in which we are, which form the pillars for this business. One is product development. We put in a lot of emphasis into actually developing products, right from conceiving it to designing it, developing it, tooling for it, and executing it. Today, 80 to 85% of our sales actually takes place from products which have been developed in-house, and that is one key strength. In addition to that, we have a large amount of engineering skills available which improve the project management and execution which takes place. And lastly, we need to recognize the customer focus. In all the businesses that I have, we strongly get everyone to focus on customer, to make sure that whatever the customer needs are taken care of. And our whole strategy for product development, making business a success, is really built around these 3 simple strategies.
Mr. Bhargava, global market offers a huge opportunity for all Indian manufacturers. What are your plans to capture the international market? Any acquisitions or mergers that will get us in near future?
Acquisitions and mergers have played a key role for us in increasing our sales outside India. Till about 6-7 years back, our sales outside India was just about 5 to 6%. We started off by acquiring Tamco in 2008. It gave us a footprint into Australia, Indonesia, and Malaysia, and also the GCC, and has enabled us today to have 30% of our sales taking place outside. So we continue to look at both product adjacencies as well as geographic adjacencies, and we see whether acquisition actually meets this strategy or not. And we use acquisition as a tool whenever the need is.
Thanks, Mr. Bhargava, for joining us in Power News.
Thank you. Thank you, Joy.
With this, we come to an end of this episode of Power News. Keep sending us your suggestions and views at info@indianpowernews.com or call us on 011-405-60701. I'll be back next week with more news and updates. Till then, goodbye and take care.